Hi guys, my name is Brian and I'm the editor of the hip hop blog DeepFreezeChillin.com. Go there for interesting feature-length articles such as how anime made its way into hip hop, who is Jay Prince, and if you have at least a passing interest in the Canadian hip hop scene, there are album reviews as well. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more hip hop content. Today's video, I'm going to be going over rappers who have seemed to have vanished. Now, rappers disappear for a variety of reasons. However, this list will only cover rappers who are still living. Rappers come and go, but have you ever vibed with a rapper's music to find out that they just disappeared into thin air a few years later? Well, this list covers some notable names in the hip hop industry that left me asking, whatever happened to that dude? Ray Cash, for those who were into underground hip hop, particularly music from the South in the mid-aughts, you may have noticed Ray Cash's excellent album Cash on Delivery. The album featured the likes of Beanie Sigel, Scarface, Bun B, and T.I. It also had the single Bumpin' My Music, which reached number 56 on the hip-hop R&B Billboard charts and was featured on the video game NFL Street 3. So what happened to this rising star with true blue hip-hop credentials? Back in 2009, he released a mixtape called Rose Ray with little to no fanfare, which did not bode well. He was already an underground artist without much commercial backing in the first place. Despite being loved by the streets, it did not translate into commercial success. Well, in 2013, Cash tried to deliver once again with a single called Turnt, but it simply didn't chart. However, Cash is active on Twitter and seems to be promoting local artists from Cleveland. So if you're a fan of his, you could definitely tweet at him about the music from the good old days. If you were like me in the mid-aughts, you were kind of caught off guard by Mims and his single, This Is Why I'm Hot. I was kind of confused whether or not this guy could actually rap. Turns out, so was the whole music industry. Sort of. Actually, Mims left the music industry and became a tech bro, and no, I'm not kidding. He went the chameleonaire route. In an interview with Stereogum, Mims reveals that he left the music industry to create a music-centered app called Recordgram, a networking app that connects music producers to artists without the middleman. In 2017, the app won TechCrunch's Disrupt Startup Battlefield competition, winning $50,000 in the process, and later got $1 million in funding a month after that. So what was Mims' actual reason for leaving the industry? Well, according to Mims, it essentially boils down to Hollywood accounting, which means creative accounting methods used in the arts and entertainment industries to reduce or eliminate the reported profits of a project. During the interview with Stereogum, Mims says he knew this is contract pretty much front to back, but the reality versus the expectations still didn't match up. And for those curious, what does the word Mims actually mean? Mims is an acronym for Music is My Savior. Wow, talk about irony. Originally signed to Rick Ross's label Maybach Music Group, rapper Stalley had been an underground sleeper agent. Being a low-key artist, Stalley didn't quite fit in with the rest of MMG, but Stalley had been on his grind going to small-town America and built a loyal cult following. So Stalley held it down for a state, naming his debut album after the state. Ohio dropped on MMG in 2014 to generally favorable reviews, and had some commercial success with the album debuting at 35 on the Billboard 200 chart. But by 2016, Stalley released his seventh mixtape, Saving Yusuf, that also featured missing rapper and Ohio native Ray Cash. So what can we take away from all this? Well, maybe Ohio isn't the best marketplace for rap artists, with two artists from the state making it onto the list. That said, Stalley had been grinding during quarantine, releasing 3 EPs, and has recently signed to Mellow Music Group, which Forbes magazine called the most successful indie rap label of the decade. So we're pulling for you, Stalley. My G4-loving teenage self would not be happy with the present me if I did not mention rapper Hot Karl. Now, most of you probably have no idea who that is. Hot Karl, real name Jensen Karp, is a producer, writer, actor, and former rapper who married Topanga from Boy Meets World. Jensen wrote a book about his time in the music industry called Kanye West Owes Me $300 and Other True Stories from a White Rapper Who Almost Made It Big, that you can find in your local bargain bin. You may have actually heard Hot Karl whilst playing NBA Live 2003 with his hit single Blow, that had a remix with Fabulous and Redman. Karl was a blend of nerd rap and hipster rap before it became cool with the likes of Das Racist. However, Jensen became famous for other reasons. Firstly, he became Twitter famous, never a good thing, for claiming shrimp from the General Mills factory had fallen into his box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch cereal and proceeded to act like a Karen about it. General Mills responded by saying there are no shrimp at all at their facilities, and Karp was delusional. However, after going viral and becoming a Twitter main character, his ex-girlfriends came out the woodwork to accuse him of being absolutely toxic in his past relationships. This next rapper is a little hard to describe. He's not very well known except for the truly subterranean hip hop heads. But unbeknown to many was that he was at one time a Dr. Dre signee. He's perhaps most well known for his song Secret Wars, taking the title of a limited edition comic book to create a song with the concept of rappers battling it out with Marvel comic book superheroes long before the MCU was a thing. I am of course talking about The Last Emperor. And after being dropped by Dr. Dre in the late 90s, Last Emperor re-emerged in the underground, signing to indie label powerhouse Raucous Records, and was featured on the Lyricist Lounge with KRS-One and Zach De La Rocha of Rage Against the Machine. For a time it was rumored that he had left the music industry to drive a cab before Uber was a side hustle for most people. But recently, Emp has resurfaced, releasing a collab with Hack Fillmore called The Lord of the Fly. Stat was once a rising star on Shady Records at the height of Eminem and 50 Cent's reign. Stat was a feature player for the Shady/G-Unit Records regime, being featured on Young Buck Straight Outta Cashville, Eminem's Encore, the Re-Up mixtape, a mixtape collab with Chamillionaire called Big Business, and was even featured on Eminem's 2005 Anger Management Tour. But the honeymoon period didn't last. Stat wasn't one to hold his tongue, and Stat told Eminem he didn't like one of the hooks that M did on what was going to be one of his singles off his debut, Dance On It. Unfortunately, this didn't jive with the way Shady Records operated at the time. Back in those days, being the top dogs, they were particularly clandestine in the way that they maneuvered, and Stat seemed to be a little too forthright with his colleagues. A little known fact is Stat had a major in economics and international business and was going to go to law school before Scarface heard him and convinced him to join the rap industry. Most recently, Statquo is a behind-the-scenes player as one of the managers of Lil Xan. Sometimes, reality really is stranger than fiction. From G-Unit mixtapes, the height of mixtape Wheezy, and more compilations than you can shake a stick at, the mixtape era will be remembered fondly. In the early 2000s, mixtapes were feeding the streets. Mixtapes became street albums and helped rappers develop that oh-so-necessary buzz. However, this era was home to several bootlegs and leaks, which caused several albums to be delayed or shelved altogether. New York mixtape rapper Grafh, alongside fellow New York rappers Papoose and Saigon, had serious hype behind them, and everyone was vying for the coveted King of New York title. Times were simpler back then. Rapper Grafh initially signed a record deal with Sony for his debut album, but as with many artists of his day, got delayed, and Grafh became frustrated with the execs who he felt didn't share his vision. Grafh then took his talents to Rockefeller Records. However, this was in the midst of the muddled Jay-Z and Dame Dash split. In an interview with Hip Hop DX, Grafh explains how this deal went up in smoke just as he was getting started. In addition to just plain bad timing, there was much speculation that since his manager had previous involvement in 50 Cent's early career, as he should have been keeping an eye on 50, but instead let him get shot, the perception was that at the time, as retribution, 50 helped blackball Grafh in the industry. But things come full circle, and Grafh is now working with Benny the Butcher, crediting Griselda for making street rap relevant again. He released the Oracle 3 back in 2020. Killah Priest is probably one of the most well-known Wu-Tang affiliates and perhaps a victim of his own success. After dropping classics like Heavy Mental and Black August, as well as other well-received projects such as Behind Stained Glass, Priest continued to drop prolifically. However, nothing caught the attention of audiences quite like Black August again, but Killah Priest continued to work in the underground, teaming up with Raz Kaz, Cannabis, and Corrupt to create the rap supergroup The Horsemen in 2003. After many years, the band has gotten back together again for 2021's The Last Ride, a sojourn into fan service and conspiracy theories. Rapper Shyne was supposed to be a bona fide star, being groomed to be the successor of Biggie over at Bad Boy Records, with Diddy investing heavily into the artist. Shyne is a true rags to riches story, with him being discovered outside a barbershop by DJ Clark Kent and signing a lucrative deal with Bad Boy Records on the spot. However, this added to his hubris, with Shyne getting his ego so inflated that he would call up Bad Boy to get Rolexes and other goodies at will. Later, Shyne played the role of bodyguard, helping Diddy escape the infamous Club New York. As a result of this kerfuffle, Shyne would land himself in prison for 9 years, nearly serving his full 10-year sentence, and once released was deported back to Belize. However, back in prison, Shyne left his gangster ways and turned to religion, becoming observant in Judaism. It was thanks to this stark contrast that Shyne got a little buzz after leaving prison for his next musical projects, but those subsequently failed, and Shyne had to reinvent himself once again. In a comeback story of a lifetime, Shyne became a diplomat, following the footsteps of his father, who was the Prime Minister of Belize. Shyne is now a current diplomat in Belize's House of Representatives. With a number of artists from the early to mid 2000s making it onto the list, it should be no surprise that this one isn't any different. The snap era of music seemed to be an era of commercial decadence for hip hop. Long tees, saggy jeans, and crazy dance moves were all the rage, with songs like Hey Baby by Hurricane Chris topping the charts and becoming ringtones. But surprisingly, it had more depth to it than suggested at first glance. In an interview with DJ Vlad, Hurricane Chris explains that Hey Baby was named after DJ Hollywood Bebe, who came from Louisiana and became a Dallas legend on the radio. Hurricane Chris himself came up from the Ratchet movement, which started in Shreveport, Louisiana, and even had his album named 5150 Ratchet, with tons of in-references to Southern music. Chris eventually signed to Collie Park Music, who had Hot Commodities, Soulja Boy, and the Ying Yang Twins under his belt. But Chris felt pigeonholed by the label and stuck in creative hell, with the labels expecting nothing but hits similar to A Baby and Halle Berry and other records of the time. Things between Chris and the label then turned sour. Then, in 2020, Chris's name resurfaced in the media as he was being charged with second-degree murder for a confrontation that happened in his hometown outside a Texaco convenience store. That's it for this video. Please smash that like button, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. And be sure to check out deepfreezechillin.com.